Hey there, this is Dr. Evan Osar, developer of the Integrative Movement System and author of the Corrective Exercise Solutions to Common Hip and Shoulder Dysfunction. Recall from videos 1 and 2 of this series of Integrative Movement Insider, we've been discussing working with clients that have either labral tear and or diagnosis of femoroacetabular impingement. Remember, once they've been cleared to exercise, we can do a lot as fitness professionals, health and fitness professionals, to help these individuals regain more optimal control. Recall that one of the most common things we see clinically is that the femoral head has moved too far up and or forward and or is being over compressed in the hip joint, therefore altering optimal mechanics of the hip joint. In video 2, we discussed an easy modification of the pigeon stretch, the yoga stretch, the pigeon stretch, to help to move the femoral head, or I should say the pelvis over top the femoral head, to actively release and mobilize the posterior hip. In this video, I want to show you how to take this into a more active pattern. Many of our clients are doing single leg reach type patterns, which is a really awesome functional pattern. Unfortunately, many of our clients are not doing a great job in how they're carrying out that pattern. So what happens with these clients that generally have myofascial gripping of their posterior hip and or lateral hip is as they go forward, they'll start to quickly rotate out of that position and or lose the ability to keep rotating the pelvis anteriorly. Because ultimately, we want them to be able to bring the pelvis towards that leg they're standing on, move the pelvis over top of the femoral head, and then hip hinge and create pure hip hinge. And very few of our clients are actually doing that with good form. So we came up with a modification of the single leg version of the deadlift pattern or hip hinge pattern, where the one leg is on the wall. So I'm going to demonstrate it now, and again, very effective way to actively mobilize the hip while developing more optimal control around the hip joint and start to progress your clients safely and effectively to doing a single leg version of the pattern. So here's how it goes. I'm going to stand next to a wall or something I can place my foot upon. So I'm going to bring my feet about hip width apart. The one leg will go back against the wall and push very gently upon the wall. So my right foot is pushing back into the wall. I'm going to square my pelvis up to the forward leg, so I'm going to rotate it towards, and then I'm going to do a hip hinge. I'm going to make sure my spine is aligned because I want to get pure hip hinge motion here. So hands will go on my pelvis. I'm going to hinge forward, rotating that pelvis over top of the femoral head. So now I feel tremendous lengthening through my posterior hip and a little bit into my hamstring, but mostly through the posterior hip. And I want to go where my tightness is wanting to take me is out of that position. So I'm going to rotate my pelvis towards the forward leg and then hip hinge forward. And I'm going to hold for a second or two and then slowly come back up out of that position. So again, it's a pure hip hinge motion, moving the pelvis over top of the femoral head and then coming back up top without squeezing and gripping and pulling yourself right back into a posterior tilted position and over grip hip position. So again, square up, hands on the pelvis, rotate the pelvis up and over top of the femoral head. Make sure the pelvis is squared up to the foot. It should not be pointing away from the foot, but squared up to the foot, and now slowly come back out of that position. I'm going to switch over here to this wall so you get a different view. Feet about hip width apart. I'm going to move the one leg back against the wall. Long spine, hands on the pelvis, rotate towards the forward leg, and now hinge. Move that pelvis up and over top of the femoral head so that we get pure hip rotation, and then come back up without over gripping. So again, stay nice and long. The glutes are working. You don't need to over squeeze and drive that femoral head forward and or change the position of the pelvis. Control it eccentrically, move the pelvis over top of the femoral head, and now slowly come back up to the upright position. We'll do one more time. Rotate up and over top of the femoral head. The pelvis moves up and over top of the femoral head, and then come back upright and control. One of the most effective patterns we have to work with our clients that have diagnosis of labral tear and or FAI once they've been cleared to exercise. It's so important that we help those clients develop a more optimal strategy for aligning and controlling their hip. And this is a strategy we've used to be successful with so many of our clients from the age of 13 all the way to the age of 70 years of age. Very effective using that mobilization from the last video and taking it into the split stance hip hinge pattern. So I hope you enjoyed this video series. I hope it explained to you a little bit of how we work with clients that have a diagnosis of labral tear and or FAI and have been cleared to exercise. If you enjoyed this video and you're looking for additional resources and or you'd like to see how we specifically work with our clients, general population clients, as well as how we work with the athletes and high functioning individuals that we work with, check out Integrative Movement Specialist Certification. This is an intensive program. We keep it small because we want you to get a lot of hands-on, truly understand what causes these conditions, such as hip tightness, impingement, labral tears, and then how do you help your clients develop a strategy for improved movement and accomplishing their health and fitness goals. So if you want to learn more about the program, feel free to click on the link below this video.